So ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new news roundup video, and today we've got things to talk about in the realms of Superman. There's been, another thing that's come out about it, and it's caused a lot of arguing online about how something may be a downgrade, so we need to get into that, among some other little tidbits there. We're then going to get into some things for the Penguin, maybe some Joker 2, as well as Sony's Venom 3. Venom The Last Dance trailer has released, and I want to give my thoughts on what we had to see from that. So go ahead, like this video only if you go on to enjoy it, and consider subscribing for more movie news updates just like this. So, first of all, just a little casual post from James Gunn saying hanging on the set of Superman with some of my favorite people. Now, you can see Skylar Gazondo as Jimmy there. He seems to be sporting quite long hair for the movie, but also, it's really not too much to say about this photo. I just wanted to bring it up before we get into more of the meteor stuff, but we also have Nathan Fillion there, and he has his usual Nathan Fillion haircut, and I just wanted to chuck it out there. Do you guys actually think he's going to have the bowl cut for Guy Gardner? Sure, you could put on a wig, and I know James Gunn has joked about casting him entirely for that reason, so he can give Nathan Fillion the Guy Gardner haircut, but I don't know. I've got a feeling that they might just be like, hey, like Nathan Fillion, you look good with your shorter hair, and we're just going to keep it like that. But would you actually prefer him to keep his kind of stylized shorter hair or longer hair? I don't want to keep breaking down hair, but the big thing that we really need to talk about in terms of DCU Superman while I was away this weekend is that we've got the first look from here, from DC Film News, saying, first look at the Kent farmhouse for Superman filming at LaGrange, Georgia. And here we have it. Now, I'm sure you're seeing it on screen, and you may think to yourself, if you're seeing this for the first time and you haven't seen this on the internet before today, isn't there a little bit more to the Kent farm? Well, that is exactly what is causing the discourse online right now, because what I'm seeing right here is definitely something I agree with. I would say more of the level-headed takes, and where this does look like a kind of farmhouse in the Midwest. Like, it really does. But then you make comparisons to the other great Kent farms that we've had before, such as the one seen in Smallville. The very one that probably most of us think in our heads is what a live-action Kent farm looks like. The place in where Clark Kent was born and raised. Well, he wasn't born, but you get what I'm saying. Then there's Superman and Lois, another recent iteration of it. We've also had, obviously, Zack Snyder's DCEU Kent farm, and normally they're like two-story buildings, and here people were saying, James Gunn, what a downgrade here, from a two-story building to more of a bungalow-esque kind of one floor home. And it gets more and more and more pedantic the more you look into it. Now, fair enough, by the way, I'm not saying you can't like this. If you wished for more of like a double-story house kind of thing, then fair enough. Now, for me, obviously, when I picture the Kent farm, I'm not gonna lie, I think, for example, something like Smallville or something like that. So when I see this, what are my thoughts on it? I really, really don't mind. I'm kind of like impartial. It's not really a thing I instantly resonate thoughts or feelings in my head as, oh my God, I've been waiting to see the Kent farm. So it's a farmhouse in the Midwest, and it is, believe it or not, to the naysayers out there, it is very accurate to that. So fair enough if you don't really like what is being presented here. But even if we, get rid of that, okay, who cares, if you could get a better shot of it on film or whatever, right? Why does it look the way it looks? Why do you think James Gunn has gone for this? I dig potentially where he's going with this, because the thing is, the Kents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, aren't exactly rich people. Now, I'm not saying they have been rich people in the other iterations of live-action Superman, where we've seen the Kent farm, and it, looks really cool and big, and you've got the silo in the background and the barn over there. But I do feel like the optics of going with a farm like this, you see the fence kind of breaking down there. You see it's kind of like a one-story farmhouse. But when you just look at this isolated, and yes, I'm doing this much of a breakdown because I really do feel like it screams the personality of what James Gunn is going for when he's looking to David Corenswet's Superman version and his upbringing. It really does give you an essence of maybe a bit more of a contrast of what they've gone with before. I mean, obviously, it's different to other Kent farms we've seen before, but more of like a kind of true-to-life actual Midwest farm. I mean, just look at the castings for Jonathan and Martha Kent. You know, Pruitt Taylor Vince, Neva Howell. I know there was also complaints about that, but, you know, they really do look like farmers from the Midwest. This looks like a farmhouse from the Midwest. I think showing a location like this really does kind of show how Clark starts here, and his family, his human heritage, of which that's a big part of this film. Clark Kent, Superman, is reconciling with his human upbringing alongside his Kryptonian heritage. Seeing David Corenswet's Clark Kent come from a place like this, then going to fly between clouds in a funny, silly red sheet with that of other superheroes, such as Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, Guy Gardner. I think a location like this truly does kind of contrast that of the life that he goes on to lead in Metropolis. Now, I'm not saying that as if it's like a new thing. I'm just kind of saying that this reaffirms that even more, because I wanted to add that in because obviously the other Kent farms in other iterations of live action still show how Clark Kent comes from that of Jonathan Martha, you know, on the farm, and then he goes off to do the exact same thing and contrast the location he came from in Smallville to the big Superman life with metahuman compatriots that he, you know, literally dives into. That always exists, but I feel like, I don't know, this location kind of really shows that contrast just maybe a teeny bit more. I don't know if I'm articulating right there, but I just feel like maybe going for a little bit of a different design this time around, instead of like a beautiful kind of wooden framed 2-story high Kent farmhouse, and just something different which kind of humbles the idea of a Jonathan and Martha Kent that is a bit more true to life maybe in the Midwest. And, you know, you have people even saying like, okay, you know, looks like the farmhouse my dad grew up in, and I'm here for this. Or, you know, other ones saying looks like my grandma's house, who is indeed a farmer in the Midwest. It's like, you can clearly tell with the castings of Jonathan and Martha Kent exactly what James Gunn is going for, despite quite a few people shiting on this for saying it looks like a crack den or a set from a slasher film or something like that. But yeah, I don't really get why people are going crazy. I guess it's just like the go-to thing these days. If Gunn reveals something, and I'm not saying everyone has fake outrage opinions, maybe they don't like the suit, maybe they don't like this casting, but, you know, time and time again, there is a bit of a pattern no matter what comes out. It's like a, you know, slam dunk of attempting to just cause some kind of outrage on it, and I dig it. It is a farm, it does have a barn, that is kind of where they would stash the Kryptonian pod and whatnot. So I don't know if we're going to get glimpses at anything like that. I know this isn't an origin story, but, you know, I've cited scenes from Superman and Lois before, and when we got flashbacks to Tyler Hoechlin, and maybe seeing on screen right now where he kind of goes to check out the pod. It would be really cool to see that. I feel like Gunn, all while he says it's not an origin, can still have this movie pertain to the origin. Again, with the Matt Reeves comparison here, the Batman wasn't an origin story movie, but it still pertained to his origin with little kind of seats peppered in there along that of the plot. And obviously, if you're going back to the Kent farm, you know, you would have to think there would be some references, even just if in dialogue. And this is something that makes me very happy anyway, by the way, because I've been talking about Jonathan and Martha Kent for a while, and I've always said it would be great to see Corenswet's Clark go back to the Kent farm, maybe in a Superman for All Seasons sense, maybe throughout the plot of whatever the heck is going on in this movie with Lex Luthor and everything else that Clark is going up against. Maybe he needs to go back, get a bit of advice from Jonathan and Martha Kent, which, by the way, I'm very happy it's both Jonathan and Martha Kent. And in Superman for All Seasons, there's that particular scene I've gone on about before, and where he kind of learns that lesson that people are adamant that can't really be learned unless Jonathan dies, and where I say Superman for All Seasons kind of offers that with Jonathan alive, and where Clark couldn't save this woman's life, and he says, I feel like I could do anything, I thought I could do anything, and Jonathan speaks some words of wisdom to him with a bit of an analogy of how he thought that once upon a time as well with regards to farming, but over time he learned his limitations, and he emphasizes the word once again, the words over time, and that like hits back to Clark and how he will in time learn his limitations. And I don't know if we're going to get a scene like that, but you have to think that James Gunn, being a big fan of the comics, and obviously these characters, will implement some, you know, Jonathan and Martha and Clark chemistry that is just hopefully absolutely fire, and I'm here for it. And again, as for the farm location, it looks fine to me. I don't think we need to go super pedantic and be like, oh my god, it's not 2 stories high? What a downgrade. Now, what is super intriguing that people aren't forgetting about here that I want to mention again, which relates to the Jonathan and Martha Kent farm we've now got to look at, is that DCU Updates attached another tweet here, and it's like, hey guys, kind of don't forget that there was that casting call for in need of 6-month-old babies, 3-year-old boys, and 6-year-old boys for Genesis, which is the code name for Superman. Thus, leading people to think, and by the way, filming in LaGrange, Georgia, so likely the Kent farm is where they need the 6-month-old baby, the 3-year-old boy, and the 6-year-old boy. People are thinking, what if we're getting a bit of a flashback to Clark Kent as a kid on the Kent farm in the movie? Now, initially, what was interesting about that is that I immediately wanted to kind of shake it off because Gunn quite clearly said there is no young Clark in the film. Now, that could be true in one way, like we're not going to get, hey, right, an origin story, right, Clark's growing up, la-di-da-da, there's 20 minutes spent on that, then he becomes Superman, launching the Fortress of Solitude for the first time, and then he goes to Metropolis. No, but maybe it could be true in a sense of, okay, this isn't going to be sprinkled in for minutes upon minutes in the film, but maybe when Clark goes back to the Kent farm in present day, maybe there's something like, even like Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, where he was on the Kent farm and he recalls his childhood, and you see little Clark jumping over the fields, and then he almost like crashes into the floor, but he starts floating. Maybe there's a cool little scene like that, something peppered in there, nothing crazy. I know Gunn still said clearly there is no young Clark in the movie, but it is interesting to consider that if you sprinkled in tens of seconds of a flashback of a young Clark just reminiscing or something like that, rather than it being actual scenes in the movie taking place over minutes and minutes and minutes, then maybe that is the possibility. I mean, a 6-month-old version of Clark as a baby, a 3-year-old Clark, and a 6-year-old Clark could make sense. And again, filming will take place in LaGrange, Georgia on Thursday, June 6th, which is just 3 days from recording this video. So what other kind of kid would they need with dark hair, with blue eyes? And it's just, it is suspicious, despite what Gunn said. And there's even more locations popping up. DC Film News says Superman will be filming at Atlantis Sand and Supply for the next few days, and will then head over to downtown Macon, Georgia. And DCU Updates here says Mental Headlines Beach in Ohio is a rumored location for Superman. The filming begins production in Ohio this month. So I don't know what scenes these would entail, if they're gonna have a battle there, or like, and who knows, would Superman even be flying over here? Who knows what scene this could be? But what I want to say is, I wonder if we're gonna get any shots. Are we gonna get some shots? Again, guys, at this point, we're well over 50% of the way through shooting, confirmed by Gunn himself, so we could be like 58% at this point, who knows? And there's not been any leaks, other than, as I said, that engineer set photo of her in a harness. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, by the way, but I am wondering if inevitably, either at the Kent farm or some of these other locations, could we get shots at anyone? I'm talking like Luthor to maybe not even Superman, but what about the other metahuman compatriots like Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific? I'm dying to even see at this point, as I've said a few times as well. I just want to see what Lois Lane looks like. What does she look like in her reporter attire? What does Clark Kent look like in his buttoned up kind of goofy, really smart Daily Planet look? I'm dying to see even something like that. And obviously I was hoping to get something like that out of the downtown Macon shots, which seem to be a location for shooting in Metropolis. But we're going to have to wait and see. But honestly, keep your eyes peeled on the channel. Make sure you are subscribed, because for all I know, something like that could be coming out after this video, if you know what I mean. It's just my luck. And then some other interesting stuff here, something to take with a grain of salt. But Tom Lowe's has been added as an osteopath for Milly Alcock on the IMDb page for Superman. Now, I know I said IMDb, and a lot of you are like, right, okay, well, toss that out the window. But the thing about IMDb, all while a lot of the time, a lot of nonsense roles and castings get added on there, at the end of the day, talents and agencies and everything like that do get added by their managers and whatnot to these listings legitimately. And that was the case, believe it or not, where we all thought it was a joke. For example, here with that of Mark Strong for the Penguin. And it turned out to basically be true. He's now in the Penguin, and I believe it's in a flashback scene from what I've heard. So this, it feels like too much of a random addition to the Superman page for an osteopath dedicated to Milly Alcock for Superman for it to just be nothing. Now, it might be nothing. I do need to say that. But the reason why this is interesting is because I've said for a long time, a lot of you have as well, that Supergirl could very well cameo in Superman. It might not be a big scene. It could just be her on Earth getting a coffee with Clark, maybe going back to the Kent farm. Who knows? She might not have found herself as Supergirl at this point in time, and that could be what her movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, is all about. So it's very easy for Milly Alcock to be included in this film, especially as she was cast very early on, even without a director and whatnot, for her own movie, which just kind of told me that they wanted to cast her in time for a role in Superman, even if it is small, as I keep saying. Now, an osteopath, I believe Tom Lowe's has worked with Robert Pattinson to Emily Blunt, if you go to his website. An osteopath, I believe, is, a person who works with just the body, stretching, rehab, kind of physiotherapy, if you will, physical therapy. So maybe there is some truth to this, but if Milly Alcock would need somebody like that on set, does that mean she would do any kind of stuff that would require a bit of stretching, maybe some action? I wouldn't really expect that from Supergirl in the film, but I just thought I'd chuck that in here because this could be our first little clue or breadcrumb of maybe some validation to that theory of how Milly Alcock could very well appear as Kara in Superman. And I believe she's already on Earth and everything like that, so it's just makes sense to maybe introduce her organically as a bit of exposition in the world of the DCU and Superman's life in, of course, his own movie, Superman. Now, up next, something briefly that I wanted to remind everyone of is that now we're in June, which is just, it really is crazy. Like, when I sit behind this camera and make these videos 3, 4, 5 times a week sometimes, the months really do fly by. But we're in June now, and we're going to get our first look at the first DCU project in that of the Gods and Monsters lineup, and that is Creature Commandos at the Annecy Film Festival on June 14th. Now, I did talk about this a little while ago, but they sent out PR emails saying that there's going to be a making of kind of thing happening. And again, I just checked the email. Creature Commandos making of session, which follows Amanda Waller as she forms a Black Ops team out of monstrous prisoners. Prepare for an in-depth look at Rick Morales and Backlash into the artistry and creative process behind this highly anticipated series kicking off a new era of storytelling in the DC Universe. So I'll be covering that. You can bet your ass I will. And I'm just wondering how much we will get to see outside of the festival. Hopefully something uploaded on that of YouTube, maybe on the DC channel, or if not, it could be some coverage in that of the major trades. And then up next, we get some little updates on Joker 2 Folie Deux. Now, a lot of you have been asking me to cover a little bit more about the movie. There's not been so much out there, but we have had Lady Gaga talk a little bit about her role in the movie, saying, "My version of Harley Quinn is Lee, and in many ways I think this will be a very different Lee for people, and I'm excited for people to see the story we want to tell." But she also says that Lee is very special to me. She's a truly vulnerable, sweet person, and my version of Harley is mine. That's interesting. She's a truly vulnerable, sweet person. I saw certain scenes in the trailer that looked, but I'm sure she kind of means that maybe before all of this crazy manipulation potentially from the Joker, I mean, actually, it depends how really the story is going to be perceived in the film, and I'm sure there will be 2 different point of views of Harley's and then Joker's on their relationship, and getting into the comic book accuracy there of how it's not exactly a flourishing relationship, I guess you could say. But maybe she is innately kind of a sweet person, but things just go off the cliff edge. But she goes on to say, and it's very authentic to this movie and these characters. And I think that's true because this movie, these characters are an Elseworlds version of these characters. So she wants to distinguish it by saying, my version of Harley is mine, and it's very authentic to this movie and these characters. I don't want to give anything from the movie away. I think it's really something you have to experience in the theater. This film has music, it has dance, it has amazing acting in it. I mean, I loved working with Joaquin, I loved working with Todd. What I will say is that I've never done anything like I've done in this movie before, so it's all going to be completely brand new and fun, of which I am completely in agreement with. I'm very much so looking forward to it. I've said this once, I'll say it again. It was good to see quite a lot of people switch up their takes when finally we got that first teaser trailer. I'm not saying that happened for everyone or you watching right now, but a lot of people were like, maybe I do see the vision now. And as of when we get that official trailer 1 and then official trailer 2 eventually, I think that this film is just going to show what it has to offer more and more to people, way more than probably what they ever expected a sequel to Joker to even offer in the first place. And now up next with the Penguin, there has been this photo going around that I just kind of wanted to debunk. So I've had a lot of people messaging me saying, hey Boba, why aren't you covering this new image from that of the Penguin series? So when I first saw this, I was like, oh, okay. Well, where did this come from? I don't really recognize it. But as I looked into it more, people were saying that it came from the DC Japan page. So I went to the DC Japan page on Instagram and I was like, okay, well, I don't see it there. Perhaps it was a story, or perhaps maybe I was then thinking, did they delete it because they weren't really supposed to release this still? But it's still out there re-uploaded by other people. But then, as I dug into it even more, I was told that this photo was seen in an article from that of 2023, which then kind of goes to show me that this is probably a set still from the first movie, The Batman, that just maybe a lot of people haven't seen so much, but it's alongside these other stills that you do probably recognize from The Batman. But it does kind of throw you off a little bit because it's like, hey, I really don't recognize this. Plus, hey, like Colin Farrell seems to be smoking there, and, you know, they weren't allowed to show him smoking in the Batman movie, so, you know, this has got to be for the Penguin series, but I think it is from the Batman. I think that's maybe just him chilling behind the scenes, smoking a cigarette, but hey, it's just like the photographer taking a shot. Nothing really more in depth than that. So, unfortunately, not a new still from the Penguin series, but there is good news for those of you who want to watch the Penguin outside of the US and wherever Max is available, because that's one thing I get a lot on the channel is people asking me, how can I watch this in the UK? How can I watch this in whatever country I'm in, because I don't have Max? Well, it turns out that Sky, who also have the streaming service Now, or it was Now TV, but it's now just called Now, they will be releasing the Penguin episodes day and date as of when it releases on Max. So if you're in the UK and you've watched Game of Thrones or something like that, you don't have to wait 2 weeks to see the episode like they've had with other series in the past, which just sucks for people in other countries. When you have a season released in America or something and you're online or on social media and you have episodes spoiled for you, that would suck for fans of the Penguin and Matt Reeves' Batverse to have that happen to them. So Sky are going to be releasing the episodes as of when they release, probably at like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning for over here. But just know that if you have access to the Sky streaming service now, that you'll be able to watch the Penguin. And lastly for this video, I just wanted to toss in the Venom The Last Dance trailer and just kind of what I think of it. So, first impressions is that, yep, it kind of looks like a Venom movie. Now, I guess I should preface this by saying, what do I think of Tom Hardy's Venom overall? It's kind of the thing in where it is what it is. And what I mean by that is, I think you kind of just have to embrace what these Venom movies are. And if you're looking for anything outside of that, it's never going to be anything other than what it is, which is kind of, in my opinion, quite literally the definition of a comic book popcorn movie, in where, you know, you don't take it too seriously, you don't look into the writing too much, because then you might see certain plot holes, or like, that doesn't really make sense there. A popcorn movie is where you somewhat deliberately switch your brain off and just enjoy the entertainment that it gives you, because you're not looking at it as like this kino cinema level event. You know, it's what it is, and that is just a clusterfuck of a entertainment mess in all the best ways. And that's kind of how I viewed Venom Let There Be Carnage, because I do feel like that had quite a different tone from the first movie. I feel like the first Venom movie didn't really know what it wanted to be. Of course, it had humor in it, but it was a bit more like of a bland tone to it. But in the second movie, with Andy Serkis directing it, they just really were like, hey, screw it, let's just embrace all the goofiness. And in the third movie here, it feels more like the second movie. And when I watched the second movie, I was entertained. I had a fun time. I laughed. But is it really still like, if I could be selfish here and sign off on a Venom thing, is this like what I would want out of Venom, like in a deadly serious way? And I don't really mean like a deadly serious movie, but like me being serious. Hey, how do I want my Venom on screen? I wouldn't say this, and I'm not saying Venom isn't kind of quippy at times in the source material and whatnot, but I trust you get what I'm saying with this tangent. It's still not exactly what I have in mind for Venom, but with it being what it is, I can still get some fun out of it. But that being said, I don't really look forward to them a whole bunch, and I may be giving off the vibes of, oh, I really don't like the Venom movies. It's not that. I think they're just fine, if you know what I mean. And, you know, this does bring out all of the stops of the comedic moments that they embraced in Venom 2, with Eddie and Venom just being like, we are Venom, but kind of rehearsing it 3 or 4 times, and it's like, we need to work on that. There's a Venom horse at the end. Oh my god, how crazy is that, guys? You know, Venom's attached to a horse now. You have like this symbiote-esque horse. That's fun. And I guess Venom's homeworld have found him and they're trying to come after him for whatever reason. And, you know, now you've got other symbiotic creatures hunting down Eddie and Venom, and it's like, okay, this should be a fun, entertaining. It's the kind of thing where it's like, hey man, you want to go see Venom 3? Hey, you're not up to much? Oh, tickets are only like $7. Yeah, sure, let's go. Let's eat some great food. That's kind of the vibe these movies have. But I don't really put them up there with something that I'm highly anticipating. There's even this one shot in the trailer that I found interesting, and where you have what I believe is the military, and I don't know if he's the antagonist, but he's obviously trying to stop all this from happening. And it looks like he's in the bar at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, in where the little blob of the symbiote was left behind, and where Eddie went over to Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe and left a little bit of the blob behind, right? Making people think, oh my god, granted, we might not get the black suit Spider-Man in Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland, but the symbiote is out there, so it might find its way to Spider-Man at some point in time, right? That's kind of the whole theory and everything behind that. But no, it's kind of like they've retconned it, and this guy just puts the little blob of symbiote in this containment thing, and I'm pretty damn sure this is the same location in where Eddie and Venom, like, hopped different realities into Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe, but they're pretending that it's really still in the Venom universe this whole time, and this guy... I mean, unless I'm reading this wrong, I feel like this is what is being pointed out, and that would be very strange, and yeah, just Sony not really caring for that continuity there. But let me know if you noticed that, and if you agree with me. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the Venom trailer. I think it looks fun, but not dying to see it. And, you know, I really do like these characters still, but it's just always been a bit of like a take it or leave it thing for me for the past several years. But either way, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and with every other story that we covered in today's news roundup video. So if you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate a like. Do consider subscribing for more news story coverages just like this on anything minor to absolutely mahoosive. I should be there to cover it, but I'm gonna love you and leave you now. So again, just thank you so much for tuning in today and supporting the channel. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.